When I was 10 years old, in an attempt to save my older brother, I fell into a vegetative state that lasted for 10 years. When I finally woke up, I was overjoyed to see my family again. But that joy quickly turned to confusion. They had adopted a daughter. She stood beside my brother, holding his hand, her face filled with concern as she softly said to my parents, "She's already 20 years old, with no education or qualifications. How will she survive in the future?" Her words were like poison, sinking into my parents' hearts. Their attitudes toward me shifted overnight. The warmth I had longed for turned into cold indifference. Even my brother, the one I had risked my life for, now looked at me with resentment. "Why didn't you just die 10 years ago?" he spat. "It would have been better than being a burden to the family now." His words cut deeper than any wound. But that was just the beginning. Later, I discovered the ugly truth. My brother and the adopted daughter had been secretly spending nights together. Disgust, betrayal, and anger twisted inside me. When I confronted him, panic flashed in his eyes. Then, without hesitation, he pushed me down the stairs. I remember the sensation of falling, the sickening crack as my body hit the ground, the cold creeping in as my vision faded to black. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back. I had returned to the year I turned 10. This time, as I watched my brother running toward me, chased by a gang of thugs, I felt no fear. I simply stood there, a faint smile on my lips. The only difference between now and then was the cold realization burning inside me. This time, I wouldn't be the one to suffer. "Jason, if you have the guts, don't run." The gang leader's furious shout echoed behind him. My brother, just 13 or 14, still naive and reckless, turned to face them. "You think I'm scared just because there's more of you? If you're so tough, come at me all at once." If I so much as frowned today, I'm not Jason. The gang leader smirked. "You have no backbone, can't even keep your girlfriend. Who else can you blame? If I were you, I'd find a place to hang myself." Jason's face twisted with rage. But before he could respond, a brick came flying toward him. It missed, shattering a glass window beside him. Reality finally hit him. He turned and ran. "Brother, that's a dead end. Run this way," called out just like before. But this time I wasn't afraid. I was simply watching. The thugs chased him down the alley. Just like in my past life, he would get caught. Just like before, I could buy him time to escape. But should I? Would he have done the same for me? No. If he had even a shred of conscience, he would have called an ambulance when I fell down the stairs. Instead, he left me there to rot, never looking back. And when I finally woke up 10 years later, he had the audacity to call me a burden. "Why aren't you running anymore? You were so tough earlier. Why aren't you barking now?" One of the thugs sneered as they beat my brother until his face was swollen and covered in blood. Jason's eyes, barely able to open, turned to me, pleading, "Little sister, save me." I smiled gently. "You guys keep going. I'm just passing by." The moment I spoke, Jason seized the opportunity, pushing the thugs away and bolting toward the steep staircase. It had just rained. The stairs were slippery with moss. Beautiful. Dangerous. Then, right before my eyes, my brother tumbled down the stairs. His head hit a rock with a sickening crack. The thugs panicked and ran. I calmly walked over, standing above my brother as he lay in a pool of blood. His lips trembled. His voice weak. "Little sister, call 120, save me." I crouched down, my fingers lightly tracing the ground, my lips curling into a smirk. "If I call 120, the police will get involved, and our parents will find out you were fighting with thugs again. They'll beat you up. Brother, stop pretending. Get up, I'm going home first." His eyes widened in fury. "Sophia, do you want to kill me?" I tilted my head, feigning innocence. "I'm just saying exactly what you told me in my past life." "Why, brother? Does it feel bad now?" It turns out he knew all along that being left here meant certain death. So why did he do it to me? Why didn't he feel a shred of remorse? I went home as if nothing had happened. My parents returned late that night, as always, too busy chasing money to care about us. It wasn't until much later that they realized Jason was missing. I, being the dutiful little sister, provided a specific location. After school, I saw brother go into the alley behind the school with some thugs. He didn't let me follow, but I snuck in once and saw them smoking, fighting, even kissing some girls. I've searched everywhere else, But I didn't dare go there. My parents panicked. Furious, they rushed out to find him. They vowed to break his legs for getting into trouble. But when they saw him lying in a pool of blood, they nearly fainted. Unlike in my past life, this time he was taken to the hospital 12 minutes earlier. Just enough to avoid falling into a vegetative state. But now his intelligence was reduced to that of a 6-year-old. My mother wept. Those damn thugs. Why didn't they just kill him? My father, furious, snapped at her. What's the use of scolding now? If you had stayed home to watch the kids, would Jason have gotten into trouble? It's all your fault. Desperate to direct her anger elsewhere, my mother turned to me. Sophia, you searched everywhere but didn't go into the alley? Do you know what the doctor said? If we had arrived just half an hour earlier, your brother wouldn't have become an idiot. I lowered my head, hiding my smile. Of course I knew. That's why I let them find him exactly 12 minutes earlier, just enough to make sure he didn't sleep peacefully in a vegetative state for 10 years like I did. After a week, my parents had had enough. Jason had become a complete nightmare. Spitting on the maid, cutting her hair while she slept, even skinning the neighbor's dog. The neighbors were horrified. Your son is a psychopath. Today he kills a dog, tomorrow it could be a person. Scandals spread. My parents' investments crumbled. Their dreams of wealth shattered. Until I helped. I suggested sending Jason to the countryside, far away. My parents agreed. The moment he left, they paraded him around the neighborhood, making sure everyone knew he was gone. With my guidance, my parents' careers flourished again. They called me their lucky star. I didn't disappoint them. I aced my exams, became the pride of the family, and finally I made a simple request. Mom, Dad, my birthday is in a few days. Can you throw me a party? Many of my classmates' parents are in business. You can exchange experiences with them. My parents' eyes sparkled. You're truly our beloved daughter, my mother gushed. My father beamed. You're like this because of our genes. Our whole family is amazing. I smiled. That party had two purposes. First, to cement my place in their social circle. Second, to find a replacement for my brother. I truly admired my classmates' family for having such a smart daughter like Sophia. She wasn't just academically excellent, she was well-behaved, understanding, and had a way of making people like her. Like parents, like child. That's what everyone said. But that day, her mother's expression darkened. You two should be careful, she warned my parents. It's best to hire a car to pick Sophia up every day. My child was kidnapped, and even though we paid a ransom of 1 million, they never returned. Her voice lowered. Your family only has one daughter now. If something happens, you won't even know where to cry. The smiles on my parents' faces instantly vanished, replaced by deep worry. Everything they had now was because of me. With my brother ruined and no chance of another child, I was all they had left. After the party, they sat me down for a serious discussion. Sophia, we'll find you a driver to take you to school every day, my mother said. Remember, never leave your phone or smartwatch behind. I blinked innocently. Mom, Dad, are you afraid I'll be kidnapped? My mother nodded, then told me the story she had heard earlier. I listened carefully, letting their fear settle in. Then I tilted my head and said softly, Mom, Dad, I think you're right. But this only solves the symptom, not the root cause. They looked at me confused. I've heard that many wealthy families adopt a son to protect their biological children. If we adopt an older brother, he can be my shield. And at the same time we'll be seen as a generous family. Their eyes lit up. A win-win situation. My father smiled. That's a brilliant idea. Sophia, you really think of everything, my mother said proudly. They immediately agreed and left the decision in my hands. The brother heaven gave me was a defective product. This time I would choose a masterpiece. That summer I visited every orphanage in the city. 3 days before school started, I finally found him. He was a year older than me with fair, smooth skin and light brown, slightly curly hair. His features were delicate, almost unreal. His name was Ethan. His life had once been perfect. A happy family, a wealthy home. Until a car accident left him all alone. Many families had tried to adopt him, but he refused. A boy like him, beautiful yet vulnerable, could easily fall into the wrong hands. But our family was perfect. My parents were rich but always busy, flying across the country for work. At home it was just me, their well-behaved, adorable daughter. When we brought him home, my parents were instantly pleased. From now on, consider this your home. Don't be shy, they told him warmly. The next day they officially changed his name. Ethan was quiet, the kind of boy who spoke little but carried a deep melancholy in his eyes. One evening I asked, "Do you remember your parents?" He hesitated before nodding. I smiled gently. Your parents left early to work hard and give you a better life. When you go there, you'll live in a big house, eat delicious food, and be well taken care of. They work day and night for you. When you miss them, they miss you too. The stars in the sky, that's their home. When you see one twinkling, that's them looking at you. His long eyelashes fluttered. A tiny sparkle appeared in his clear eyes. Are you telling the truth? He asked softly. I nodded solemnly. Of course. Why would I lie to you? For the first time, Ethan smiled. The sadness in his eyes eased. Then I must study hard and eat well, so my parents won't worry about me. My new brother was so easy to manipulate. Ethan and I attended the same elite high school. He had been the center of attention since birth, and even among the children of the city's richest and most powerful, he stood out. Perhaps people were used to cheerful, arrogant boys, so his quiet, melancholic nature made him even more desirable. Within 2 weeks, he had received over 1,000 love letters, including ones from the daughters of high-ranking officials and billionaires. Sorry, he told them calmly. In high school, I just want to focus on studying. Ethan had no interest in romance. But I was different. While excelling academically, I also expanded my social network. I frequently invited the daughters of wealthy families to our home, even asking Ethan to model for us as we painted. The lawn, the flower garden, the luxurious food, the most beautiful boys and girls in their prime. How could it not be breathtaking? Their parents naturally followed, forming business connections with mine. My father's company flourished, and my parents' fondness for Ethan grew. They even gave him the large room that once belonged to my brother. Gradually, Ethan replaced Jason's position in the house, and no one even noticed. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Ethan and I were now studying at a university near our home, the same university my brother had attended in my past life. I chose it purely for convenience, as it allowed me to manage my studies while working at my parents' company. As for Ethan, as my devoted older brother and bodyguard, of course, he had to stay by my side. On the first day of school, at the classroom door, I overheard a girl muttering to herself, "This can't be right. Didn't Sophia become a vegetable? Why is she here? And Jason should be a third year now. Why can't I find him anywhere? Did I remember wrong?" I turned my head slightly. She was wearing a light yellow spaghetti strap dress, her hair tied into a cute bun. I recognized that style immediately. Jason's favorite type. And her face. I knew it all too well. Anna. The fake young lady. The one who had pushed me off the building in my past life. She was one of the masterminds behind my suffering. What a coincidence. Anna had also been reborn. And even more conveniently, she had walked right into my hands. Anna spotted me and rushed forward, blocking my path. "Sophia, where's your brother?" Her tone was arrogant, her eyes filled with disdain. In my past life, Anna had never looked directly at me. She had always spoken down to me, as if I were insignificant. When I didn't answer, her expression darkened. She reached out and shoved me. "Are you ignoring me? Are you deaf?" I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. A red handprint instantly bloomed on her cheek, her lip cut open by my nail. I stepped forward, my voice cold. "Did your parents not teach you manners?" I sneered. "Out of all the girls who have pursued my brother, you're the worst of them all." Gasps filled the hallway. Whispers erupted. Is she serious? Anna thinks she has a chance with Ethan? How delusional can you be? Just then, Ethan stepped out of the classroom, hands in his pockets, ripped jeans, white t-shirt. His presence alone was breathtaking. Anna's face twisted in shock. Who are you?" she stammered. The crowd burst into laughter. "Who else? The person you just claimed would like you." Anna's face burned with humiliation. Anna, flustered, said, "That's impossible. How can he be your brother? Clearly, Jason is your brother. I smirked mockingly. Oh, are you talking about that idiot? He's back in the countryside getting treatment. Anna was dumbfounded, muttering. How could he become an idiot? He can't become an idiot. What should I do? I looked at her with disdain and began to mock her. My brother has been brain damaged since childhood from fighting. His IQ is only that of a 6-year-old, and you still won't let him go? In this day and age, some girls would sell anything for a bit of money, but sorry, even if my brother is an idiot, he's not someone a low life like you can cling to. The crowd immediately erupted in applause and cheers. Anna glared at me fiercely. Sophia, just you wait. I'll make you regret this. I crossed my arms, smiling coldly as I watched her run away in humiliation. In my past life, Anna only had the upper hand because I was in a coma for 10 years, leaving me no time to fight back. This life, I'd like to see what she has to compete with me. Who is she? Ethan asked curiously, tilting his head slightly. I blinked and smiled. Why, are you interested in her? Ethan gently patted my head, a hint of reluctance in his tone. It's just the first time I've seen you hate someone so much. I raised an eyebrow. Is it that obvious? He nodded with a smile. Yes, your disdain is practically spilling out of your eyes. Someone once said there are 3 things in the world that can't be hidden: poverty, coughing, and love. But I think there's a 4th: hatred. I've always been against school violence. From middle school to high school, I've protected quite a few victims of bullying. But Anna was an exception. Anna was a freshman in the arts department. People who study this field usually come from very wealthy families or have some issues. Clearly, Anna fell into the latter category. Her family background was so ordinary it was almost boring. Studying this field, she wouldn't find a decent job after graduation. In my past life, she majored in finance. This time, perhaps thinking she would marry my brother, she didn't study hard in high school and ended up switching to the arts department. Perfect timing. The arts department had many of my friends and my brothers. That afternoon, I invited some friends out for tea. Casually, I recounted what had happened that morning. They were immediately outraged. Being wealthy young ladies, they had plenty of time, energy, and connections. As soon as Anna entered the classroom, she was blocked at the door. Do you even know what art appreciation is? What is design? How many art exhibitions have you been to? Have you ever attended an auction? How do you step into the arts department? The threshold for art has really lowered these days. Even dogs and cats can get in now. I was wondering why you smelled so sour. Turns out it's because you're poor. Laughter erupted throughout the classroom. No one stood up for Anna. In fact, some kind souls even closed the back door to keep the teacher from noticing. Everyone here, to some extent, belonged to the same social circle. Even if they weren't acquainted, they had heard of each other. Maintaining good relationships was essential. Under their care, Anna's life in class was miserable, and it only got worse in the dorm. She was often locked in the bathroom, her bed always wet, her newly bought clothes full of holes, and her facial cleanser mixed with some unknown liquid. Anna couldn't take it anymore and finally sought help from the counselor. But her roommates unanimously claimed she had stolen their belongings, and even said her personality was problematic. As a result, not only did she not get help, but she was almost disciplined. So she had no choice but to move out and rent a place. But Anna didn't have much money, so the place she rented was in a terrible environment. Occasionally, I'd hire some burly men to knock on her door by mistake, leaving her terrified every night. After one semester, she had visibly lost weight, her eyes sunken and exhausted. Moreover, she failed 4 courses. Anna was somewhat resourceful. She went to the countryside and found my brother. After confirming that he was indeed an idiot, she didn't give up. Instead, she befriended him and brought him back home. During dinner, of course, my parents were shocked to see Jason. He was only 1.7 m tall, with dark skin, a flat nose, and a horrifying scar on the left side of his face. His teeth looked like they hadn't been brushed in centuries. Just opening his mouth could make people nauseous. Dad! Mom! I finally found you! My brother shouted excitedly, rushing to hug my mother tightly. He even kissed her face. Let me go. You lunatic. Let me go now. My mother struggled desperately, but my brother thought she was just emotional and hugged her even tighter. Seeing my mother about to faint, my father finally reacted. Enough! You beast! Do you want to suffocate your mother? My brother's face immediately turned pale. He knelt down frantically, kowtowing and apologizing. The air began to fill with a foul stench. My brother was so scared that he wet himself. Even Anna couldn't stand it and took a few steps back, her eyes filled with disgust. But she forced a stiff smile. Uncle, Auntie, I happened to meet your son while traveling in the countryside. I saw him sleeping in a pigsty in the middle of winter, fighting with dogs for food, and being beaten by the villagers. It was truly pitiful. I couldn't bear it, so after confirming he was your son, I brought him back. I couldn't let him continue to be bullied. It's a good thing I found him. If some malicious person had written about this and published it, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Anna spoke very skillfully, mixing threats with flattery. My parents exchanged glances. Despite their displeasure, they let my brother stay. Anna looked at me with a triumphant, challenging smile. I smirked, my smile full of hidden meaning. Did she really think the villager abuse of my brother was a coincidence? Most of it was arranged by me. I paid them well, with the only condition being that they couldn't kill him. In that impoverished village, they naturally agreed. As for the others, seeing my brother being bullied wasn't a problem for them, so of course everyone wanted to step on him. Anna shamelessly moved into our house. She was very clever. For the first half-month, she tried to keep a low profile, only appearing when my brother caused trouble to soothe him. Having experience from her past life, Anna understood my parents' preferences well, and quickly won them over. One weekend, I returned from my part-time job to find Anna and my mother coming back from shopping. The living room was filled with their spoils. My mother happily shared with me, "Sophia, when are you free to go shopping with us? Anan has such good taste. She's smart and knows how to talk. She had me laughing all afternoon. You should learn a thing or two from her. A girl should have some grace." Anna smiled smugly at me but maintained a gentle, soft expression. "It's mainly because Auntie is beautiful, has a great figure and excellent taste. You're like a natural hanger. Everything looks good on you." Her words made my mother beam with pride, praising her even more. Anna's smile nearly reached her ears. As soon as my mother went upstairs to rest, Anna immediately showed her smugness. "Sophia, didn't expect I could win over your family so quickly, did you? What's even more surprising is that you're about to be kicked out of here." I smirked. Since my 18th birthday, my parents have given me 20% of the company's shares. In 2 months during the company's anniversary, they'll officially announce me as the heir. I suggest you take advantage of my idiot brother still listening to you and try to grab as much money as you can. Otherwise, when you're kicked out with nothing, you'll have no choice but to sleep under a bridge. Anna's face turned pale. She gritted her teeth, furious. "Impossible. I absolutely won't be kicked out. And you'll never inherit the company. Just you wait." With that, she hurried into my brother's room. Soon, the sounds of intimacy between a man and a woman echoed from the room. "Are you not afraid she'll do something drastic during the company anniversary?" Ethan frowned, a rare look of doubt on his face. He was a genius with an astonishingly high IQ. Whenever I encountered difficult problems or challenging projects, he only needed a glance to figure them out. But when it came to understanding people, he was slightly less adept than me. Otherwise, why would he ask such a question? The only thing she can do is get pregnant with my brother's child. Actually, if she waited a year and a half, it would be the perfect timing. But she really believes that in 2 months, my parents will announce me as the heir, so she's panicking. My idiot brother and Anna, greedy and lustful. Just thinking about it makes me look forward to the anniversary. Ethan nodded. "It's going to be quite lively." That was the brother I chose. Even if I pierced the sky, he would only worry if I got hurt. Handsome, tall, and great at making money, but all the money he earned went to me. What a perfect brother. Thankfully, I found him early. My brother, having tasted the pleasures of a woman, became inseparable from Anna. All day, he would strip her clothes off regardless of the situation, whether in the living room, the kitchen, or even the garden. Fortunately, my parents were abroad on business recently, so they didn't witness this. "Don't look. It's disgusting." Ethan covered my eyes from behind, his tone annoyed. "Animals are still animals. They don't know how to choose the right place." This was the first time I heard him speak so harshly, but his description was accurate. Animals are still animals. On the day of the anniversary, as soon as my parents returned from their business trip, Anna dragged my brother out and waited at the door for over half an hour. "Uncle, Auntie, you must be exhausted from your trip," Anna said sweetly, holding my mother's arm. "Your son has been very well behaved lately. It's truly a match made in heaven. In my past life, my brother harmed me for her sake. In this life, even though he was an idiot, he still obeyed Anna as before." As my parents sat down to rest in the living room, Ethan and I slowly descended the stairs. My mother happily waved us over. "I was just about to have Annie call you two down." This trip went very smoothly, so I prepared gifts for everyone. She handed each of us a gift box, including Anna. I received a crocodile leather bag worth millions, and Ethan got a high-end watch worth millions as well. Anna, seeing our gifts, excitedly opened hers. A peacock-shaped hairpin adorned with gemstones, the latest model this year. But it was only worth $70,000. Instantly, the smile on her face froze. "Why aren't you saying anything? This is a gift from my parents. Don't you like it?" I smirked mockingly. Anna understood my mother better than I did. Her affection was reflected in the value of the gifts. No matter how much she pretended to like something, the gift's worth was the truest expression. The more she had flaunted before, the more humiliated she felt now. It wasn't just because I liked the most expensive one. Anna forced a stiff smile. My mother nodded with a smile. "It's good that you like it. Sophia, Ethan, tomorrow you two will be giving speeches at the anniversary ceremony. Have you prepared your speeches?" I nodded confidently. "Of course. We've been on stage countless times since we were kids. Even without a script, we can talk for hours." My mother's face was full of pride. Anna, however, subtly touched her flat stomach, a calculating glint in her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, I cut her off. "Mom, Dad, is my brother coming tomorrow?" My father frowned, looking annoyed. Why would he come? I glanced at Anna, whose face had turned pale, and smiled challengingly. She glared at me, her eyes filled with anger and malice. I smirked. Did she really think that a few days of flattery could replace me and Ethan? My parents were business people. What mattered most to them was profit. 2/3 of the company's projects were signed by me. My connections and resources were even better than theirs. In private, I was their daughter raised by them. Even though my brother was their son, he had long been a lost cause. My parents had never considered letting him inherit anything. Of course, if it were my brother's child, they might have been moved. But the timing of that news absolutely could not be tomorrow. "Sophia, are you really confident she won't ruin your speech tomorrow?" Ethan, seeing that I hadn't prepared a speech, raised an eyebrow and asked. I elegantly took a sip of champagne and confidently replied, "Of course. I'm not sure about others, but I know her too well." As soon as I mentioned it, Chow 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 arrived. Anna led my brother in, holding an invitation card I had deliberately left on the table. Anna was still very cautious. She sneaked my brother into a corner. But this was the first time my brother had attended such an event, so of course, he couldn't sit still. He made a fuss, demanding food and drinks, so Anna had to let him sit on the sofa while she went to get food. Just a moment of carelessness was all it took for my brother to cause trouble. A woman walked by, wearing a dress identical to Anna's. My brother, thinking it was her, immediately hugged her from behind and even tried to grope her out of habit. "You pervert!" The female colleague angrily slapped my brother, and even threw the wine in her hand at him. If it were a normal man, the matter would have ended there. But my brother was a 6-year-old with the mind of a child. If someone hit him, of course he would hit back. His strength was greater than others. With just one slap, the female colleague staggered back several steps, knocking over glasses on the nearby table. The sound of shattering glass echoed loudly, drawing everyone's attention. My brother, frightened by the loud noise, froze and wet himself. My father, seeing this, had veins popping on his forehead. "You bastard! Who let you come here? Get out! Get out now!" Anna hurriedly intervened. "Uncle, this is your own son. How can you treat him like this?" Immediately, the entire room buzzed with chatter. A glint of calculation flashed in Anna's eyes. She wanted to use public opinion to force my parents to accept my brother. "Uncle, Auntie, We're here today to share some good news. The doctor said I'm pregnant with your grandson. You're going to be grandparents soon. Aren't you happy? The Tam family finally has an heir. The company can't be handed over to Sophia. She's just a daughter. Once she's married off, she'll be like water spilled out of the family. With that, she took out an ultrasound from her bag and excitedly handed it to my mother. My mother reached out, but not to take the ultrasound. Instead, she slapped Anna across the face. Who do you think you are? Our family matters are none of your business. Anna clutched her face, unable to believe what had just happened. She didn't understand why the mother who had once loved my brother so much in her past life had become so cold and indifferent now. The answer was simple. My parents always loved the child who brought them the most benefit. Clearly, in this life that child was me. No, you can't hit my wife. My brother, seeing my mother hit Anna, didn't hesitate to punch my mother, breaking her nose. Blood gushed out. My father, furious, lunged at my brother, punching and kicking him. You beast! How dare you hit your own mother? I should have strangled you in the womb. My brother, afraid of my father, didn't dare to fight back at first. But when he saw my mother grabbing Anna's hair and hitting her, he somehow found the strength to push my father away and attack my mother. The scene was chaotic, chickens flying, dogs running, incredibly lively. This is quite bloody, I remarked with a mocking smile, unable to look away from the spectacle. It's a bit too bloody, so I brought you some fruit slices to snack on. Ethan thoughtfully handed me a plate of fruit. The company's security had all been sent to the basement parking lot by me. So when the police arrived, the four of them were lying in a pool of blood. The doctors were horrified by their condition. It was truly a gruesome sight. Flesh and blood splattered on the ground, with a piece of an ear lying nearby, almost bitten to shreds. The incident was resolved. The good news was that the ear belonged to my mother. The bad news was that it didn't need to be reattached because my mother's life would now be spent in a wheelchair. Talent or not, it didn't matter anymore. My father suffered a skull fracture and didn't survive the 3-hour surgery. My brother had several ribs broken, nearly puncturing his lung. His right arm was shattered, and his brain was completely damaged, turning him into a madman. Anna had a miscarriage and had to have her uterus removed. Her face was completely ruined. What a pity. Out of 4 people, only 1 died, I remarked coldly. I held a grand funeral for my father. Everyone in the industry praised me for my filial piety. Of course, I was the one who benefited the most: the company shares, the house, the cars, the overseas assets. All of it was now mine. My father had always been power-hungry. If he had to hand everything over to me, it would have taken until next year. Now it was all settled in one go. I brought a bouquet of chrysanthemums to visit Anna in the hospital. It's all your fault I ended up like this. Get out. Anna, lying on the hospital bed, screamed furiously. I smiled gently. No, you don't want me to leave. If I leave, who will pay your medical bills? I kindly reminded you before to take as much money from my brother as possible, but you didn't listen. Now you regret it, don't you? Anna's eyes widened, bloodshot and insane. I knew it. You've also been reincarnated. No wonder everything is so different from the past life. I smiled meaningfully. Congratulations, you guessed right. That's why I especially came here to thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have had to put in a lot more effort to deal with them. Hearing this, Anna trembled with rage. Everything should have been mine. You stole everything from me. You're evil. You'll definitely go to hell. Even if I die, I won't let you off. I leaned down, grabbed her chin and smirked coldly. Anna, have you forgotten? I crawled up from hell. Wasn't it you and those people who pushed me down there? Besides, you should understand, I never stole anything from you. Everything was always mine. For the rest of your life, I'll show you what it means to want to live but not be able to, and to want to die but not be allowed to. Anna's head was wrapped in white bandages, but they were quickly stained red with fresh blood. In this moment, she finally understood what fear and horror truly were. Anna struggled madly, trying to break free from my grip, but it was too late. For the rest of her life, she would have to atone for what she had done to me in her past life. My mother couldn't accept the feeling of falling from heaven to hell in an instant. Her husband, her health, and everything were gone. She fainted multiple times but eventually accepted the truth and asked me to take her abroad for treatment. I reminded her that the risks were high and it wasn't necessary, but she insisted on the surgery. In the end, she died on the operating table. As for Anna and my brother, I sent them to a nursing home I owned. I put them in the same room. A completely idiotic brother and a furious Anna. Every day was incredibly lively. Anna blamed all her misfortunes on my brother and constantly insulted him. But my brother, now completely brain-dead, didn't care. His mind was only occupied with carnal desires. Even if he defecated or urinated on Anna, he felt no disgust, only the urge to pin her down. Due to long-term malnutrition and living in a filthy environment, Anna's paralyzed body began to rot. Half a year later, I received news that both of them had died. Anna's body was completely mangled, oozing pus everywhere, barely recognizable as human. My brother, due to a lung infection, died in extreme pain. The scene of their deaths was even more horrifying than the scariest horror movies. Serves them right. After leaving the nursing home, I immediately called Ethan. He responded lazily, "It's done. As long as your hands aren't dirty, it's fine." I smiled and held up my fair, delicate hands to the sunlight. Dirty? Not at all. They're very clean. The only thing I did was go with the flow. The rest was them killing each other. Ethan's voice was as lazy and indulgent as ever. "You just helped me negotiate a $4 billion contract. In return, cook me dinner tonight. Not too much to ask, right?" I licked my lips, adjusted my low-cut dress in the rearview mirror, and smiled seductively. "Fine, let's go."